part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
What's good, Breakers? That sound means it's time for Cavs on the Break NBA podcast from the Press Play Podcast Network. I'm your host, Chase Smith, and with me tonight, a very special, because I think this might be the first time this has happened ever in Cavs on the Break history. He does sports at Fox 8. He's the host of Sable, co-host of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. John Sable. John, it's me and you taking the ball up the court, man. What's up?
Chase, what's good, man? Hey, you know what? I think we may have done a Cavs on the Break pod together last year. I think maybe the draft one, maybe, or something.
Have we been on the break before by ourselves? We might have. We might have.
We might have. I can't remember. But I know I was a guest on your own Chase Smith podcast. That's what I'm thinking.
You were. Sam and JIA are sitting this one out tonight. And hey, shouts to Zach for checking this pod out. Zach, one of the OG breakers. John, do you know that's what we call our fans of the show now, breakers?
You know, I listened to last week's episode and I saw some tweets from fans, and I think it's great. So I love it.
Totally trying to make Fletch happen with this breakers thing, but we're rolling with it until otherwise noticed. Hey, we talked about this last week, John. You weren't there. Thanks for listening, though. You texted me and said, I did listen, and it means the world. And what we called a statement week, a gut check week on last week's pod, the Cavs kind of sent a little different message to the league that we still have some work to do, Sam. We did defeat the Bucks at home. It was a great win at home. Everyone's feeling great. Me, Sam, and JIA were like, oh, we're going to 3-0 this week. We're going to beat the Bucks. We're going to beat the Raptors. We're going to beat the Nets. All at home is going to be great. And then we crap the bed against the Raptors, and then we lose to the Nets. I'm trying not to go into overreaction mode, John, but I'm a podcaster, and I cover the team in my own way. And so it's hard not to, but gosh, what a lousy way to close out the week, man.
Yeah, 6-game homestand, Jace, the longest homestand of the year. And you start out on fire, winning 4 in a row of that homestand. You had a 5-game winning streak. Then you go to that Raptors game, which, you know, they came out flat. They were sluggish. They fell behind early. They tried to rally, but just couldn't get anything to muster. A game that they should have won on paper. But, Chase, they don't play games on paper. They play them on the hardwood. And then the Nets game was a game that similar, pattern. You get behind early and you're playing catch up. They were down by as many as 19. They rallied back, cut it to 4 with 41 seconds left. But, it's hard to really beat a team like Brooklyn when they're as hot as they are. They're coming into winning 13 of 15 and winning 8 straight. In addition to having KD and Kyrie Irving both dropping 32 points each. And they were filling it up. And the Cavs really had no answer besides Darius Garland. He had, 46 points. Donovan Mitchell had a bad game. I'm still trying to see what's going on with Evan Mobley's game. I know we'll get into that in a moment. The Cavs didn't shoot the ball particularly well. So when you're playing this upper echelon teams like Brooklyn, when you have 2 dynamic scorers like that, you're hoping for a cold night from one of those guys, and it just didn't happen. You need someone else to step up, and Cavs didn't have that. I would like to think in a series, though, the Cavs would squeak out a few wins against Brooklyn if you're having KD and Kyrie shooting like that. Mitchell's not always going to play and shoot the ball that bad. So, you know what? It's still a good test. Had they played a little better, what changed in that game, Chase, was the Cavs' defensive mentality. Had they played that straight, suffocating defense like they did in the middle of the third quarter throughout the whole game, they win that game even with KD and Irving shooting the ball that well. So, it's a mentality thing. And, I don't know if they were tired from the homestand. I don't know why you'd be tired from the homestand. You had some decent breaks there or what, but, it's easier said than done. But it's still, there's still some positive signs from that game in particular. And, the game from against Utah, they beat the Jazz. I know Colin Sexton wasn't there. Would that have made a difference? No. But still, the Jazz have come back to earth since their hot start. And that Bucks game, you know what? Milwaukee, I think, is exposed again. When you don't have a second scorer like that, and it's all Giannis all the time. It's when you don't get a second scorer, that's Cavs LeBron 1.0. So Milwaukee is still one of the teams to beat, obviously, but they're going to have some issues there if they can't get some help for Giannis. All in all, though, 4-2 on the home stand. I'm not upset about it. I'm pretty happy. If you'd have told me that's the outcome, I would have taken it.
I wanted this to be a statement week for the Cavs. I wanted the Cavs to arrive, and they're still too young. They're still too weak. And I wanted it right now. I'm going to admit, I wanted it right now. I wanted to beat the Bucks. I wanted the Raptors are the most annoying team in the NBA this season, in my opinion. I wanted to beat the Raptors, and I was ready to beat the Nets. But you know what? Kyrie and Katie are still really good at basketball. And you know what? The Nets still, the Raptors still know how to play high pressure physical defense. And John, that has given the Cavs trouble all season long. And I went into overreaction mode on Twitter that night when we lost to the Raptors. I hate to be the guy that reads their own tweets. I've said it like 6 times this season already. But,
it's funny. I read them already, but go ahead. Read them.
John, you are the OG breaker. I don't know why we're calling Zach the OG breaker, John. You might haven't be. Here's what I said. It's no secret the Cavs struggle with aggressive ball pressure defense. Our backcourt is too weak and undersized. Yeesh. Was that an overreaction? Oh, here we go. Overreaction or on point. Our backcourt is too weak or undersized.
What's your definition of weak? Strength, mental?
No,
not clutch. What do you?
Garland is on the floor more than Lopez for the Cavs, and Lopez lounges on the floor the entire game. I mean, it drives me crazy. Here's another tweet: everything Lopez does, parentheses nothing, for the Cavs is horrendous. Even how he lounges on the sideline drives me bananas. He's easily the worst part of the Cavs. That is on point. I'm not even going to give you an option to retort.
That's on point. And when you tweeted that, I just started busting out laughing because when
he came against the Raptors and had like the worst 3-minute series I've ever seen in my life. He did that against the Bucks. Like, oh my gosh, as well. Like when he played in Milwaukee, he's awful.
It's crazy to see the talent disparity between Brook Lopez and brother Robin. I mean, one guy's playing basketball. I don't know what the other guy's playing, but.
Okay. Sorry. Back to the original. Our backcourt is too weak and undersized. Garland isn't strong enough.
Well, so I think they're undersized for sure. I mean, when you have, below 6'1" guards, you're going to pose a problem because look what happened in some of Donovan Mitchell's playoff games out in Utah. He got shut down when defenses would switch and put a bigger guy on him. Yeah. And Utah kind of, what are they going to do? Well, he couldn't really adapt to it. And he has been open about it, that he needs to be a little bit more aggressive. You got to get a little more creative about it. He's aware of it. He knows that. He said that. So I don't think it's a concern by any means, but I think they just got to get a little bit more creative. I mean, I don't know. What do you want Darius Garland to do? Gain 20 pounds of muscle? I mean, it's going to hurt his game in terms of who he is. I think I want him to stop driving the lane expecting a foul. He's not that good yet. He's not that player yet. He's not going to get that call, and I would agree with you on that. But, when he drives to the rack, he gets things started a little bit. He's going to dish it out, or he made this crazy shot late in the game. I think somewhere in the third quarter. I don't know how he got it off. He split 2 defenders. He split, I think it was Durant, and I forget who the other guy was. Just in the key and threw the ball up, and it went off the glass. And I remember thinking to myself, did he shoot that from behind his back? Because the camera angle had it blocked. Yeah. It was just so acrobatic and smooth at the same time. Anyways, I get what you mean. I just think if Darius Garland's going strong to the cup, he's going in there to score, obviously, but he's also not afraid to dish it. That's just part of who he is. I don't know what you would want him to change other than maybe his shooting. I don't have the offensive metrics in front of me, but his shooting hasn't been the best this year. And I really think, Sam has talked about this to me before, and we've talked a little bit about it. Darius has not been open about it. I almost wonder, I don't think his eye is 100% still from opening night. And that's going to bother you. And I'm not no optometrist or whatever, but it's going to take some time to heal. But he has not been right physically in that aspect of things all season from that first injury in the opening night in Toronto. And, he was too skilled to all of a sudden drop back a little bit in his shooting. maybe that'll come a little bit. I don't blame that on Mitchell because I don't think that's what's happening. It doesn't make sense that his numbers would plummet when he's still getting the same attempts. You know what I mean?
I think their lack of size is going to hurt the Cavs. Think back to when they beat the Celtics in Cleveland. They barely escaped that game with a win. They couldn't get a shot off at the end of regulation. Mitchell got blocked. And I just think the MO is out on the Cavs. They can't handle high, like aggressive ball pressure and to put length in the guards. And it works. And so teams that can do that, I mean, the Bucks can do that. The Raptors can do that. The Celtics can do that. And if you're looking to be in the Nets can do that. I think you look at like these top, like next level, how you want to jump tiers in the East, you've got to be like, I'm not saying the Raptors are up there. I'm just saying like, man, you got to be able to handle that pressure. And I haven't seen the Cavs been able to do that. Even against the Pacers when they were at home, the Pacers were able to do that a little bit. They didn't have the depth or the talent, but gosh, they get the Cavs fits in the first 3 or so quarters there until Mitchell tied up had to let them know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, Chase, you bring up 2 points. First, you mentioned the size, and you're right. When you face a team like Boston, who is so long, like a Jason Tatum, you're not going to match up well against them. You need to like outskill them, outscore them in different ways. And then if you also mentioned the fact that maybe they're just not there yet, and they're in terms of rounding that corner of being that upper echelon team. And I said this from the beginning, from that Mitchell trade, that I don't think they're a top 2-3 team. I think they'd be a 4 or 5 seed. And I think that's when it's all said and done, they'll probably be if they can stay healthy and keep this up, they'll probably be a 4 seed in the playoffs. They're going to take their lumps. They're going to continue to grow. But the one glaring white elephant in the room here is that they are missing a piece badly. And we're kind of all saying the same thing here. We've said it on different pods in the past with Sam and JIA. They need a wing that can score, who's that bigger, wing that can be that also defender that could also hit that corner 3. Isaac Okoro was supposed to be that guy. He changed his game in the offseason, put on all that weight, and guess what? He's not that guy. Chetty Osman's too streaky. He's not that guy. Karis LeVert's coming off the bench, and while it's worked a little bit, he's still very inconsistent. And when he's on the bench or off the bench and playing, you're giving either Mitchell or Garland a breather. So then it comes to, where are you going to find that guy? Well, it's a good segue to Ricky Rubio. JB Bickerstaff today, as we record this on Tuesday evening, this morning at shoot-around, said that they're targeting an early next month return, which next month is next week. So expect him to possibly return sometime at the middle of end of next week, which would put him in the second, because they play the Bulls back-to-back, I think. Yep. And then they play Phoenix. If memory serves me correctly, I don't have their schedule in front of me.
Yeah, that's Phoenix. They're in Phoenix for that game.
Yeah, so that could be a target time. It's up to Ricky and how he's feeling. I've been at shoot-around. He's shooting around. He's practicing. He looks fine, but you just don't know testing on that ACL, especially your second injury. He's going to give you a little boost. When I mean little boost, I mean little, because you just don't know what you're going to get. But that's not what they need. They still need an acquisition of a trade, which means, Chase, they don't have any assets really to trade to get that piece. Because one, you don't know who's on the market. It's still so early. We're just after Christmas here. 2, on the surface, the only people you could probably deal in a trade, number 1 is Karis LeVert, and I don't know how much you're really going to get from him. He needs to, he's still inconsistent. He is who he is. And then, of course, you got some, second-round draft capital. The main draft capital was traded in the deal with Utah for Mitchell over the summer. So if you do make a deal in 2 months from now, or a month and a half, 6 weeks from now, it's not going to be a top player. It's going to be like a C or a B player. Sam's always floated out the name Terrence Ross because the Cavs have been in interest in him last year at the deadline. So that could work. I'll tell you a guy that could work is Harrison Barnes. Mm-hmm. Harrison Barnes' money would match perfectly with Karis LeVert for this year. I mean, I think I don't have his contract in front of me. I think he's locked in for 2 more years after LeVert would expire. LeVert's on an expiring contract. But it's how much money you want to go ahead and pay to someone like that. He's going to give you your veteran leadership. He can score a little bit. He's long. He can defend. He's kind of had a resurgence in the last few years in the certain systems that he's been in. Dan Gilbert is no stranger of paying money for guys.
Yeah.
So that could be one.
If Jeremy was here, he would say Alec Burks.
I was just going to say, Jeremy loves Alec Burks, who actually played for the Cavs a few years ago. I had a cup of coffee with them, only for a few games and got traded in the middle of the year. He's had a surging season. He would be a low risk. When I mean low risk, I shouldn't say low risk, low capital in receiving, meaning you're not going to spend too much to get him like you would with Barnes. You're not going to take on as much money as you would with a Harrison Barnes. So yeah, he could be one. But still, you're still missing a guy though, because he's not going to plug that hole long term.
Yeah. Do you think who says no first? The Cavs offer Lopez for a Big Mac at McDonald's. Who says no first?
Ronald McDonald says no.
McDonald says no.
Because he's already got the better hair.
It does seem to always come down to the hair. Can we talk about Garland putting up big numbers when we lose games? He dropped 50 against the Timberwolves in a loss earlier in the season, and now he drops over 40 against the Nets. Is this kind of how he's going to be?
No, I don't think so, because in the Timberwolves game, look up the numbers, Chase. What did Mitchell score that game? Did he play that game? I don't think he did.
He didn't play that game.
All right, so you can't fault Darius for that. All right, so Mitchell played last night, and he didn't play very well. So Darius lifted up the rest of the slack and dropped 46. I don't think I think it's just a random thing that he's putting up big numbers and losses. The Cavs could have, I don't want to say they could have beat the Nets. They were losing for most of that game. They held a lead early, right up from the tip. But that's still a winnable game, knowing how they rallied back. So I think that's kind of overreaction on maybe on your part, just a little bit.
Yeah.
It's happened twice. There's different variables in those games that lead it to be not, I think, a factor.
Yeah. John, I have a confession to make. I'm really, really hard on Darius Garland.
Yeah, I was going to say, why are you so hard on him? What's the issue?
I don't know. I don't know what the issue is. I've just realized, wow, I am really hard on Darius Garland. I don't know. I want him to be the player that Cavs want him to be. And I guess I haven't thought I've seen it yet. And who am I?
Well, Chase, you weren't hard on him last year, though.
Well, no, he didn't have a huge contract. And they didn't trade for Donovan Mitchell. They didn't trade for Donovan Mitchell. They didn't say this is like the Cavs have locked themselves into this squad for the next 3 to 5 years. And I think with that comes expectations that weren't previously on either of the players, on Mobley, I don't think Allen will be on the team for that long. That's just
really? Really?
I think of that core four, I think he's going to be the first to go. Well,
you bring up an interesting point with Allen. He's this is year 4, year 1 of his 5-year deal. Is that right?
I don't think deal. That's so far, and things can change. My goodness, things can change. But
that's overreaction too, though.
That is overreaction.
Very overreaction. Yes, it is.
I think the trade changed everything. I think it changed expectations more so than the contract. And I think I believe in him. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be so hard on him, John. I just need someone. You're like a therapist right now. I'm having a breakthrough moment, John. This is it.
What I don't understand is just because he got the contract, you, Chase Smith, went ahead and made the ceiling a regular 8-foot, 9-foot ceiling, a 20-foot ceiling. Am I wrong to say that?
I think that's one of the contributing factors. Yes. I mentioned the trade for Mitchell as well. I think raised the ceiling for everyone in the team. But why wouldn't you have higher expectations for a cornerstone player in your team that's going to be like the face of the franchise? I think that's fair.
No, I think it's fair. I just think what he's doing, it doesn't warrant the criticism that you're giving him, because he's still putting up decent numbers. He's not shooting the ball as well as he did last year. He's pretty beat up physically too, in addition to his eye.
Yes.
So let's give him some leeway there.
I love that dog in him. I love that fight and Garland. And
so I think if you had I can't believe we're going to talk about this, but if you have a place to blame and have an issue with anybody on this Cavs team, and you're the president and CEO of the Isaac Okoro fan club, rip him, dude. Like, what has he been doing?
For a brief moment, I thought you were going to say Evan Mobley, and I was going to get really excited.
He's my next guy. So I like Isaac Okoro. I think he is a nice kid. I had a great time chatting with him at Media Day.
Yeah.
We sat down and my brother and I on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline pod had him and Chetty and Dean Wade and Lamar Stevens on our pod, which is great.
His injury has been huge, by the way. People we haven't talked about that. He was that player that we're talking about.
Correct. Isaac Okoro was supposed to take that, not a leap. He was supposed to take some type of little jump in terms of a new position. He was supposed to be the guy that can hit that corner three this year. He was working on that. He added 10 or 15 pounds of weight in the offseason. He just hasn't had a consistent offensive game. And I think you either have it or you don't. And unfortunately, Isaac does not have it. He is who he is. He's a great defender when he's out on the court, but he's also a liability.
He has it in my heart, John. He has it in my heart.
I'm just saying, you're giving Darius a very unfair criticism, but your boy who's right in front of you, you're letting him off the hook.
I admit I am hard on Darius Garland, and maybe I'm a little too hard, and maybe I need to chill out a little bit. But gosh, I just think he can be so good, and I think he has top-notch character, top-notch attitude, all of the things. He checks all the boxes, and I just want him to be the point guard for our team for a long time. But
he will, because he's already locked in long term. He'll get there. He'll be fine. You got to think, this is just his second year pretty much playing. I mean, he played handful of games in college.
Handful of games his first year.
Yeah, he's still finding his way, Chase. And I think the fact that we see what he's been able to do, knowing what he's happened in the past and how young he is pretty damn remarkable.
It is.
And that's not getting talked about enough, I think. So,
and to his credit, any player who can drop 50 or 40 in the NBA game, especially when your option A is struggling, that says something. And not a lot of players can be like, "Oh, I got you, bro." You know what I mean? And so I've talked about it before. A lot of basketball comes down to the best player on the court, and he's definitely in that conversation every single night. And so I am too hard on him. I admit it. But that's a little bit of my rationale behind that.
My Evan Mobley thing is this, and this is another one too. We as media and national media as well, national writers, guys that we know and read and watch and listen to, whatever, all agreed and thought Evan Mobley was going to take a leap this year, and he hasn't taken that leap. You can call it a sophomore slump. I tweeted that yesterday, and someone was like, "It's not a sophomore slump. His numbers are still good." Well, yeah, his numbers are still good. They're I think you can look them up, Chase. You got them in front of you there. It's maybe a hair better, but the efficiency I don't think is there. And this is not fair to say this, because we have made him to take this leap, and the Cavs know he was going to. It just hasn't happened. So it takes some guys a little longer to kind of, grow a little bit. And for him, he knows this. He's got to put on weight in the future. They modeled him off of Giannis Antetokounmpo when he first came to the league, and hey, this is what he was. This is what you should be. So Evan Mobley is going to be a star in this league if he can consistently get a mid-range jumper, which we've seen flashes of that. It's just not going to take one off season. And I think that's all where we got that wrong. We're all guilty of that. And that's unfair to him. And he's going to get there, or hopefully he'll get there, and he'll put weight on, and we'll see what he can be. But I think we put him too high too fast after seeing what we saw last year. And that we're all guilty. All the media members, for the most part, are guilty of that had said that and wrote that and talked about it. So I give him a pass because his numbers are still pretty decent. We were just hoping for a bigger jump, and that just hasn't occurred, and it may not happen until next year. Yeah. Still a phenomenal player, and compliments Jared Allen when he's out there, as well as the other young core too.
Yeah. Well, that was a impromptu overreactions or on point, which, got to be honest, John, is the greatest segment of all time, and that is a fact. Hey, we're going to take a quick break here, Cavs on the Break with John Sable and I. Stick around. When we come back, John has some interesting Cavs facts for you. Then we're going to jump on to the Week 11 slate, talk about the upcoming games, and stick around. We'll be right back.
Ohio, listen, I have some great news for you. DrafKings Sportsbook is coming to the Buckeye State, and Press Play Podcast has sponsored with them to help you get the most bang for your buck. And it won't be long until you can bet on all your favorite sports from the comfort of your own home. To celebrate, all new customers will receive $200 in free bets when you sign up today using our promo code P3Cavs. That's capital P, the number 3, capital C, capital A, capital V, capital S, P3Cavs. Plus, 5 lucky customers will win a $100,000 free bet. You heard that right. $100,000 free bet. DraftKings Sportsbook is giving you, right now, if you sign up for free, $200 in free bets just for signing up with our promo code, no deposit required. And you'll be entered to win a $100,000 free bet when you sign up. I just did it. It is super simple. It's easy. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today, wherever you get your apps on your phone. It is the best. You'll receive that $200 in your account the moment sports betting becomes legal in Ohio, looking like January 1st. You don't want to miss out on this incredible offer. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-589-9966, 21 years, ages, and older. You have to be physically present in Ohio. Eligibility restrictions apply. See terms at DraftKings.com/sportsbook. Subject to regulatory license requirements. 1 entry per customer. $200 will be issued as 8 $25 free bets. No purchase necessary for sweepstakes. Void where prohibited. Ends the first day DraftKings is allowed to operate in Ohio. See terms at dkng.co/OH.
What's up, everyone? I'm Holly Wetzel.
And I'm Tybus Powell.
And we are your hosts of The Orange is Oranger, a Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We give you all the dog pound coverage that you'll need to get you through the regular season, hopeful postseason, and I'd say off-season, Tyvis, but is there really ever an off-season for this team?
Thankfully for our podcast, Holly, there really never is when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. Don't miss our breakdown of each week's matchup, game recaps, and any and all news out of Berea to feed your Browns appetite. As we know, Holly, dogs gotta eat.
Yes, they do. So hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode of the Orange is Oranger, Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
The R&R podcast going to be rocking and rolling with you because football season is underway. College, Ohio State, the Power Fives, the MAC, the Browns. Michael Regai, are you ready to rock and roll with some football?
Kenny, I've been ready. This is our time of year. This is what R&R is all about. We're going to be with you every week. Kenny just said it. Browns, NFL, Ohio State centric. So you got to stay with us all fall and winter long here on R&R.
That's right. The Regai and Rhoda podcast coming to you here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Subscribe now and don't miss a show.
Hey everybody, I'm Gary.
And I'm Jason. Opening cards as a kid, no matter what was in the pack, you always had that stick of chewing gum. Well, it turns out Gary and I opened up a box of 86 Tops last year, and let me tell you, the chewing gum does not age well.
Join us on the Ball Card Show,
the sports podcast for the sports collector.
All right, we are back. Cavs on the break. John Sable and I here talking all things Cavs Week 10. John, you got some Cavs facts for us.
So I always like doing this on Fox 8. I always, when I do and write my sportscast, I always try to think of something that's, something a little bit different, out of the ordinary, that you're not really going to see in the day-to-day sports. And I always come up with, something that's this day in like Cleveland sports history, but nothing that's so obvious. Not like, oh, on this day the Cavs won the title. Something that's so random specific that's like makes you scratch your head.
Right.
And a lot of them, and I've done this with on other pods, on other episodes of this pod with Jeremy, as well as Sam. And one particular today that I found fascinating. 38 years ago, Chase, you and I were not born yet.
All right.
Was a 38 years ago today, an anniversary occurred that involved the Cavaliers, and it was not a good anniversary. So today's date is December 27th. So December 27th, 1984, Michael Jordan played his very first game against the Cavaliers in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
Lit up the Cavs for 45 points.
Sure.
Jordan was a rookie. Cavs lost that game with World B. Free scoring 30 points. They lost at 112-108. So think about this. That was 38 years ago. We had no idea, as fans and people, and the members of the media, and again, we weren't born then, but fans in general, people in the NBA and the world had no idea that for the next 10 years, Michael Jordan would torture Cleveland in so many ways.
Longer than
that. Longer than that. I guess if you count some of the games.
He hit that game winner when he was in Washington. I was at that game.
You were. I did not know you were at that game. I remember watching that game. But I'm saying, like, in those dominant Cavs teams of late 80s, early 90s, and then kind of changed away in like 93, 94. But little do we know that one game, his first game ever against the Cavs, was just foreshadowing to 10 years of misery and more, if you include the Wizards and some of those other late 90s games. So I thought that was pretty crazy, kind of fun little fact. It's nuts to think about that. If you look at the rosters on some of those teams, you'll recognize some of those guys, but man, there are some players of that era in those early to mid 80s that were pretty horrible that Jordan played with, that were already out of the league by 88, 89, that couldn't even play in the G League, let alone Division I basketball probably now.
The Last Dance doc talked about those teams and how they would party and drink and do other recreational drugs. And Jordan and the doc would just go to his room and shut the door and not be a part of the team. And kind of always from the onset was like this lone wolf on the team and did his own thing. That game against the Wizards was really interesting. John, you said you watched it at home?
I remember it. Yeah. Yep.
So the Cavs were up that game. They ended up full court pressing the Wizards and had a pretty large lead. And then the Wizards started coming back. And the end of the game, the Wizards had the ball there, throwing it in from the sideline. And everyone in the whole building knew who was getting the ball. Like, there was no doubt about it. Everyone knew that, Michael Jordan is going to get this ball. And when he got it and made it, John, the arena cheered. They didn't boo. They didn't they cheered. They knew that they got to witness Michael Jordan, not only in Cleveland, but hit a buzzer beater. They cheered. Like, no one was upset. It was a ton of fun. I loved it. I was rooting for Jordan in that game. It was incredible. I don't know. What do you remember about it?
Jace, it's so funny you say that, because I remember watching that game from my parents' family room.
Yeah.
And when he hit that, I cheered. And I hated Jordan growing up because he killed the Cavs. And I cheered, and that Cavs team was bad that year too, obviously. But, it was kind of cool to see. By that time, you're kind of like, okay, you missed the Jordan of old, but you're yes, this is a shell of himself, but this is kind of cool to see. And so it was kind of neat to see it happen in a game that was meaningless for both teams.
Really grainy footage on YouTube. Rip Hamilton's got his like whole face mask on. Jordan does the calm fist pump, and and Gund Arena, I think was it Gund then 2002?
Yes, it was. Yeah,
it's just still going bonkers. And you're like, oh my, it was crazy. All right, well, let's talk about week 11 for the Cavs here. We host the Pacers.
Chase, one more thing I want to say. Talking about Cavs facts here, real quick, before we go to the week slate here. Sorry to interrupt you, but today is also a monumental day, and I kind of mentioned it to you before we started recording. But anyone listening to this who's in our ages, in the 30s or even probably late 20s, may know this. I'm bummed Sam and Jeremy aren't on here because I don't know if they know this.
Well,
they probably saw it on Twitter. They probably saw it on Twitter. But today was an announcement was made that has to do with basketball that East Bay, the company East Bay that had those East Bay catalogs when we were in high school, middle school and high school, they were going out of business effective, I think, like this March. And for all those younger listeners that don't know, East Bay was a catalog that you'd get sent to your house and you'd pick all your sports gear from.
Yep.
And you'd get to see all the jerseys and shorts, replica shorts, and you pick out your basketball shoes for your next season and stuff, your cleats or whatever. It was the rite of passage for seasonal sports of your youth and elementary, middle school, and high school. And it's funny because I remember up until about 5 years ago when I was living in Florida, I'd come home and visit my parents, and my mom would always have a stack of mail. It was all junk mail on my room, my bed when I'd come home. And there would be, over the course of like 6 months, there'd be like 6 months worth of East Bay catalogs. And I'm like, it's like 2016. They're still making these.
That's amazing.
And then effective today, they closed them. But, I bring this up because during that era of Jordan's Wizards, Chase, they featured a lot of Jordan's Wizards jerseys in those catalogs, as well as like those late 90s, early 2000s was like the pinnacle height of some NBA shoes. You had the Kobe's, the Sean Kemp's, the Shaq's. You saw obviously the Jordan stuff, Vince Carter's, the Nike Shocks, whatever. You saw all of those, not on the internet. You saw them in an East Bay magazine.
Yep.
And so an end of an era of our childhood and adolescent youth of basketball comes to an end today here on December 27th, 2022.
East Bay always with that gold cursive lettering on the magazine. I never could afford to get shoes in East Bay. The only way I got shoes is if our team got team shoes. And we did get Shocks one year. I was really pumped about that. East Bay, man, magazines. I mean, I guess it's closing. So there you go. A few more moments here, John. Thanks for those nuggets of wisdom there. Always, you're just a never ending source of information, which I'm glad you're in news. So it's probably goes hand in hand there, man. So, so we host the Pacers on Thursday, December 29th at the Rock at 7 p.m. Then on Saturday, we host the Bulls, ends our homestand, the Rock at 7. And then we head back to the United Center in the new year, January 2nd, to play the Bulls in the Windy City at 7 p.m. John, what are you looking for these next 3 games here? Pacers, Bulls, for this Cavs team to get out of the slump?
Well, Chase, for one, I want to see what they do against Indiana Thursday. You're coming off of a holiday week, 6-game homestand, the longest of the year. You start off the homestand great. You lose the last 2, not the way you want to. If they come out slow again, that's going to be a concern, obviously. But, trying to see them, come out on, clicking on all cylinders, having some flow on offense. That Nets game, they had no flow on offense. The only reason why they made that game interesting wasn't necessarily Darius Garland's 46. It was the defense that changed the entire mentality of that game. So for me, I want to see, especially this Indiana game Thursday, how are they going to be able to respond? The one thing we also haven't talked about is, have you noticed, though, the Cavs are starting to restrict some minutes when it comes to Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, just a little bit. And so by doing that, because Mitchell was playing way, way too much for a while, but to finally, to see them come out here, I kind of want to see if they can finally put something together on the road against a team like Indiana, who really isn't going anywhere per se, but they have the size and some guys that can maybe create some fits in that Cavs backcourt.
Yeah, I want to see them take care of business. Beat the teams they're supposed to beat. The Pacers obviously going to be in the lottery. I think, even though I really like Halliburton, I think he's the top 5 point guard in the league.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
It's just not their year. Crowded East, and I think they're going to, very soon you'll see a concerted effort to make sure they make that lottery. And then the Bulls, they are just a cluster of like the chemistry is way off. They have to make a decision too. Are they going to, what are they going to do? That Wembanyama kind of carrot is going to be dangling for a lot of these teams. And, I want to see the Cavs beat the teams they're supposed to beat. Of course, win those games at home. You ever been to a game in the United Center?
I have not, but I've heard it's kind of an interesting place because it's so big and the press box is so high.
It is magical. When we lived in Chicago, before we moved there, we went to a game. I teared up when Sirius came on that. You grew up not liking Jordan. I don't want to say idolized Jordan, but I loved Michael Jordan. I had the whole starting 5 at guard, 6'6" from North Carolina. I had everyone down to Jordan. And when the lights go down and the strobes start spinning and that bass, it is awesome. Alan Parsons Project is so cool. The Jock Rock and the Jock Jam CD also helped make that like a thing. I know you had some of those tunes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The Bulls were the first team, I think, in the NBA back in those early 90s that did that with the starting lineups, that dimmed the lights and had the strobes and the lasered lights and, had the music to it. So
our elementary school team copied it and we did it. And then everyone else in elementary schools did it after we did it in elementary school. It was cool. But Benny the Bull's great too. He's one of the legend classic mascots in the league. Benny the Bull at the United Center.
It's funny when we talk about legend and classic, like the Bulls logo is so iconic,
dude.
And I look at it to this day and I don't like it because Jordan, what he did to the Cavs. I mean, it's a great logo, don't get me wrong, but it brings back to me the memories. And I remember when I was in elementary school during the early 90s, I remember when the first thing you had to do in first grade, you had to write in your journal what you did the day before after school or something. And I remember, and my mom found these a few years ago, and it's this little John Sable chicken scratch handwriting. And it would say I hate the Bulls.
Oh my gosh.
Mark Price is amazing. Michael Jordan, stinks or something. And I would draw little sticks figures with a blue 225 and a red 23, And I remember a parent teacher conference one day, my first grade teacher says to my mom, John's a great student, whatever. I mean, you're always a great student in first grade, but he says hate a lot in his journal. He doesn't like the Chicago Bulls. Is everything okay? So I remember my mom saying something John, hate is a strong word. Just say dislike, I'm like, no, Mom, I hate the Bulls, Yeah. So, but it's such an iconic logo. So I always think of that. I mean, one of the best logos in sports.
Gosh,
and it brings back so many memories of those teams. And especially when you watch that Last Dance doc too, you got to see a lot of it too. And that brought back a lot of bad memories for Cavs fans and in my childhood as well.
A lot of great memories for me personally. I love the Bulls. Those black and red pinstripe jerseys. Oh, come on, John. I mean, I think just the red, black, and white color scheme is great as well.
Well, it's simple and classic. And on the shorts, it has that inverted square diamond with the bull in it, which is just perfect, Really random question for you. Those 90s Bulls teams outside of Jordan, who was an underrated Bulls player? Because I have one that Jordan has talked about in the doc that I don't think gets enough love.
I liked Pippen a lot. I understood even then what he was able to provide. But I don't think Longley, I think it was clutch. Ron Harper, the second run, Horace Grant in the first run, Rodman in the second run. Kukoc, I think, came on huge. I just think Paxson in the first run. I mean, I don't know. I just like them all, man. I don't know.
my guy, I thought Horace Grant was vastly underrated.
Yeah.
But mine was BJ Armstrong.
Yeah.
I think he really set the table for that Bulls offense when it ran through Jordan, but he was a guy who distributed it ball really, really well to Jordan and Pippen.
At one point, I would have said Buechler as a Like
Judd Bush.
We would at our playground pretend like we were him running off the bench, because there's one of his like game winners, like Jordan hits the game winner and then Booster's like running off. He's the last chair on the bench. He runs out. Was like, yeah, I did it. Like two fists. We always pretended to be him.
Yeah, he was the early 2000s version of the Los Angeles Lakers, Mark Madsen.
Oh my. Yeah,
but
yeah.
Judd Bushler was better.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Lakers. I know Kobe rest in peace, respect all that. He was really fun to not like and to cheer against in the late Kobe and those Lakers teams.
That was my Jordan. He was fun not to like, but yeah, that's really crazy.
Well, yeah, so Pacers, Bulls, love to see them bounce back. I think we go 3-0 here. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. And you want to be above the Bulls team who, was in the playoff conversation, kind of in that, 5, 6, 7, 8 kind of area. You want to see them start to separate themselves from teams like this. So we'll see what happens. We know they play well at home. Let's not overlook the Pacers or the Bulls, and we'll see what happens, John. What do you say, man?
Yeah, but they had that back-to-back with Chicago, I think, right?
Yeah, that play in Cleveland, and then they have the New Year's Day, and then the second in Chicago.
And then you got Phoenix after that. So, yeah, I mean, you got to come out strong. You got to – I don't know if you can go 3-0 that quickly with that. I mean, you'd like to see it with teams that are going to be in the lottery, but definitely, obviously, doable, and it should happen. But, yeah, it's going to be it'll be interesting to see what they can do going forward here in the next few weeks. Is that you're going to start to see more separation in the standings, where you're going to see a lot of buyers and sellers start to emerge.
Let's do it. Well, John, I buy everything you're selling, man. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Every single thing I am buying, man. Even the nice little haircut, man. We got to talk hair gel products sometime, man. We got to talk, because I got some things. I don't have that style now, but like
did you shave your head?
Oh yeah, I've been rocking the buzz since it went blonde. Like after the blonde, I got my ears pierced and went buzzed.
Man, all right. I missed the bleach hair.
No, you didn't miss. I had blonde hair for like a year.
I know. I'm just kidding.
All right. Well, no one wants to hear it. Maybe we should start a hair product podcast, John. Me and you talk all like male products we could use.
I don't know if anybody would really listen to that, but if you want to waste some time, let's do it.
Well, we're not wasting any more time. That does it for this episode of Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Thank you all so much, you, the Breakers, for downloading and listening to this podcast. Shouts to the Press Play Podcast and for making this possible. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Cavs on the Break. Look, we always follow back. Shouts to DrafKings Sportsbook. Look, we're going to be able to bet on sports here in a month and here in a week. And they got like 4 more days to sign up for the free bets that they're offering. $200 issued on January 1st. You have to be in Ohio and register with our code P3Cavs. That's the thing. You have to use our code P3Cavs to get the $200 in free bets and $25 increments at DrafKings Sportsbook. Make it happen, people. Make sure to follow John on Twitter at John_Sable. Check out Sable Bros in the Baseline podcast. You just had Bernie Kosar. What is up, man? How was that?
Oh, Bernie was great. I urge anyone to go and listen to that. A lot of cool Browns chatter there about his playing days and what he's going through, and just reliving a lot of nostalgic there. And Bernie's a great guy. I work with him at Fox 8 with our Browns pregame show, Orange or Brown Countdown, Sundays at 11. And so really got to build a good relationship with him over the last 6 months or so. And he was great. Bernie was fantastic. He is who he is. Genuine guy. He's a guy you just want to sit and talk with. Lover of life, man. He's a tremendous, tremendous guy.
Well, John, I have to admit, I think you win the Junkyard Dog Award tonight.
I guess there's nobody else, but I'll take it.
So you get, and hey, you actually have a Junkyard Dog Award now, huh? How about that?
Yeah, Santa Claus from
Santa
Press Play. Santa from P3 sent me one, and I don't have it with me at the current moment, but I think next time we record, I'll bust it out and wear it.
You got to, since you just were, awarded it. John, final thoughts, man.
Hey, you know what? This season's going to be still long. It's still early. It's still a lot has to happen. I wouldn't get too discouraged off of a loss here and there. This team's going to be growing. The future's still bright. If it's not this year, it's next year and beyond. So enjoy it. We've got a great competitive team here in Cleveland, and just have fun, because as we know, basketball here can be pretty miserable. So enjoy every moment that we have with this team now, and let's see where they go. I think they'll surprise us and pleasantly surprise us with some great production, and I think we'll be talking playoff basketball come spring.
Love it, love it, love it. Well, Mike Breen, take us out.
Congratulations, Cleveland. Your decades-long wait is finally over. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.